One.
PokeRamble Podcast.
Welcome to a very special edition of the PokeRamble Podcast. We'll be doing a spoilercast on the Isle of Armor. We'll be giving our thoughts, talking about the story, talking about those Diglets, all that kind of good stuff. So strap in, it's going to be a good one. Oh, I'm your host Kumail, and I'm joined by the one, the only, the Battle Frontier Brain, Amit. How are you, my friend?
It's good. Bonus podcast. Always a treat.
Bonus. It's a treat for some people. If you find those people, let me know. Yeah, we thought we would, instead of doing the podcast on Sunday and adding it on top of the mountains of news that there will be on Sunday, we thought we would do this as a separate sort of thing. The last time we did a spoiler cast, it was 2.5 hours. Yeah, it wasn't a good look when you looked onto the feed, was it? So I think it's probably more sensible to make this its own thing, its own conversation, and something more loose and, you know, sort of more easier to play with, rather than something like how do we call it? Structured, that's the word. Unstructured, that's what we're doing.
It gives us the freedom to have conversations that, you know, we want to have and go off on tangents if we want to.
Yeah.
Which
Talking of
nice,
tangents, we can now
podcast.
acknowledge the chat because, you know, it's a spoiler cast, you know. So hello to Amberlina, Mecha Shadow, Largent Brewer. Hello to everybody that's joining us on this special edition of this spoiler cast for the PokeRamble podcast. So yeah, Isle of Armor. I don't know where you want to start with this one.
Can I just be really excited that someone's complimented my remix of the Lavender Town, not Lavender Town, of the Viridian Forest theme?
Yeah, you can. I think it's the first time anyone's actually acknowledged that, apart from our good friend DJ Pandaroo, who you can also find on twitch.tv /DJ_Pandaroo. But yeah, it's a bloody fantastic remix, and I didn't know you had it in you. So well
Neither did I.
Well
Neither
done
did
you.
I. Where do we want to start?
Before we got the expansion, what were you expecting to get out of this? You know, it's Tuesday night. You're excited for Wednesday. Isle of Armor is dropping. What did you expect?
I think I think I was expecting some kind of fanfare or announcement that, I don't know, maybe through Twitter or through, I don't know, a direct. There was going to be some big reveal. And obviously we had, I'm trying to rack my brains to get things in chronological order, but we had the Pokemon Presents on Wednesday last week, where the Isle of Armor was such a small part of that reveal, where we talked about it in the last podcast, Pokemon Smile and all those other things that we got out of that direct, but it was weird for it to be such a small, almost non-existent part of that Presents.
I think it was smart, simply because, look, it's coming out. If you want to know more, jump in and play it. And I guess, you know, if you've got Sword and Shields and you've enjoyed it, I think there was no doubt that you were going to get this sort of expansion pass anyway, in my mind.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they didn't spoil too much of it.
Yeah, but sorry, I should have said in terms of expectations, what were you expecting out of the DLC before you touched it? You know, did you have some sort of grand plans in your head for it, or, you know, were you just?
I think I was really hoping to pick up on a storyline, and I knew that the dojo was going to be a part of it, and we were going to meet Mustard. So, you know, a couple of things got spoiled for us through trailers and whatnot. So I was hoping that it would really get into maybe the story of how Leon became champion, how he became such a talented trainer.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we get a bit more depth behind the main story, and I guess just an extension of our journey. You know, a chance to see new things, do new things, take on bigger challenges than I think we had before.
Yeah,
How about you?
I think it's just basically what you just said there. I just wanted a bit more story, because we had so little of it during the main game. And, you know, it's a really cool place, this Isle of Armor. We knew Mustard, who was this Galarian champion for 17 years, and he also trained up Leon as well to become the next champion. And so I wanted to hear more of those, like you say, backstories and experience that sort of story, and also see what we will be doing with Kubfu, because we know Kubfu was going to be a big part of this DLC along with the dojo. So that was really it. I was excited to see our rivals and see what their journeys would be like. Clara and Avery as well. But those were the things I was sort of wanting from the expansion. And then Wednesday afternoon after the Pokemon Presents, we got that opportunity to dive right in to the story. So I think should we start talking about the story and how that went?
What was your impression of the story? I'm really curious to know. Forget specifics for a second. What was your overall reaction?
It was short, surprisingly short, I'd say. I shouldn't have been so surprised considering the main story itself can be done in about 10-12 hours anyway, so I shouldn't have expected so much from a DLC. But in terms of the story, I don't think they quite got it right. I think the best part of that whole Isle of Armor story was just after you meet Kubfu. There was cool moments before that, but it wasn't all that. I think I was quite disappointed by our rival characters during that story as well, and how they were basically caricatures rather. I'm surprised I said that, caricatures. They were caricatures.
Yeah, you normally flub those words.
Yeah,
well
I know. Pat on the back for me. I don't know if you heard that. But yeah, there were more caricatures than actually fleshed out characters that had some sort of purpose, other than us wanting to beat the living Shelder out of them. So. Yeah, what about you? What do you think?
I spent more time running around looking for 3 hairs.
God.
I spent more time running around trying to find 3 hairs in the grass than I did playing the story.
Now, I actually have a correspondent to talk about why you're running away, chasing 3 hairs. Can I just bring him in here?
Of course.
We'll cut over to our good friend Joe. So, Joe, take it away, please.
Hey, I've brought an invasive species to this natural island reserve, but I'm too lazy to round them all up before they destroy the ecosystem. So, can you find them all for me? From r/am I the arsehole? And recorded by twitch.tv/jmedforth.
Thank you very much, Joe. Yeah, that Diglett guy. God, so you walk up to this guy and this guy's like, oh, I've lost 151 Diglets. Go find them. And you're like, oh, God, no. So do you just want to talk about the Diglets now? Just
yeah,
go
I just want to get this off my chest. Right. So look, you're 5 minutes into the DLC. You literally arrive on the island and you're walking up to the dojo and you trigger an unavoidable event where this guy goes, hey, I lost 151 Diglett. Firstly,
at that point, how do you do
right,
that?
You could only have 6 Pokemon at any one time. Put them in the PC, for God's sake. Secondly, start with 5 Diglett. Just say I've lost 5 Diglett. Let me find 5, and then I'll worry about the other 151. He also didn't mention that he lost a flipping Dugtrio, but I found that as well. The worst part of the DLC, by far.
Oh, do you know what? I quite like collecting all the Diglets and stuff like that. I think the worst
How many
part,
have you found?
I've found 112.
So you haven't got to the bad bit yet. Which is where you've got like 1 or 2 left in an area.
No. Okay, let's give a little bit of credit here, right? The fact that you can go into an area and it'll tell you how many you've got left in that area is quite a nice thing to have. Because
I promise you that won't make it. I promise you that won't make a difference later. When you get down to the last few, it will not matter.
No, well, here's the thing: it won't matter if you've forgotten where you've already found the ones that you need to find, if that makes sense. So, like for example, I'm never going to go back to the Isle of Honor, the Fields of Honor, because I know I've got all the Diglets there. So if I'm missing one left, I know it's definitely not going to be there. So at least that cuts down.
Yeah, it does. It
cuts it down from 24 hours to 23 hours for me to find that last Diglett. So.
Oh man. Yeah. So it's insane. I don't know why they said 151 Diglett. Maybe it's a shout out to Kanto because any opportunity the Pokemon Company get to reference the original games, they take it.
Yeah.
But 151 Diglett, and these aren't Diglett that are visible, by the way. Let's make that really clear.
Hang on. What did you describe it as? Because you sent me a message, and I was just crying at the message over the weekend. You said it was what word? What word was it that finding this Diglett did to you? Was it?
It's abuse. It's abuse of the player. Like some of these Diglett are literate. Like because all you see are 3 hairs poking out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
So they put those 3 hairs next to 3 blades of grass, and you're like, there's 3 blades of grass and there's 3 Diglett hairs, and I can't tell the difference between the two because the graphics quality is so poor.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on the deserts. Going for the deserts, and some of them are just hid very cleverly. Like one by the dojo.
and then you've got to find them in a sandstorm, and it's like, make my life harder, please.
Sorry, can I just pause there so I can go on YouTube and play Darude? No, I'm just
Yes,
joking. I won't do it.
Um,
I thought it was pretty fun, but I can see why it's quite infuriating for most. I mean,
I
some
think,
of those Diglets took me ages to find. Like,
the bit that really infuriates me with collectibles is collectibles are supposed to be one of those things where as you're going through the story, they're little odd things to make you explore maybe areas that you wouldn't have explored otherwise while you're just burning through the story. It's not there to make you look at all the different blades of grass and work out which one of the blades of grass
I really
is a
enjoy these
Diglett and which
5
one's just a
pixels.
flipping rock.
Yeah.
Like, and don't get me wrong, some games I've loved collecting collectibles. Like Uncharted, one of the best games to collect collectibles in, because every time you find one, it's in a super scenic view and you feel like you've really had to work for it. Sometimes there's a puzzle to get there. You know, Super Mario 64, love getting all the stars, right? Don't get me wrong. But finding those Diglett, and what really infuriated me is how long it took to find those Diglett relative to the story. Like there was no need to find those Diglett to complete the story. So you just had to do it off your own free volition, and it took way too long.
So
I just seen a question in the chat from
Yeah.
Bits who's saying, "What do you get when you return all the Diglett?" You get some Pokemon.
And your sanity.
that
You get
can
your
just
sanity back.
you literally get Pokemon that you could have just imported via Pokemon Home. So no cash, no money, no TMs, nothing useful. You literally get Pokemon that you can just get in the previous game and port over from Pokemon Home.
Let's be fair, because me
Oh
and
my
you
God.
are big nerds when it comes to Pokemon. But for some people who are returning back into the game, like I know a few people who've come to Sword and Shield and really enjoyed their time and picked up the DLC. For them, it's the first time they're seeing these sort of Alolan forms for some of the Pokemon. So to be fair, for most people that are not like nerds like me and you, I mean, it's a pretty cool thing that you get Alolan Pokemon introduced to all these different Alolan forms of the Pokemon. I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, so the gimmick is it's an Alolan Diglett, and the guy's from Alola, and it's the whole Alolan theme. So I get it. Which makes the joke that one of those Pokemon should have been a troll. He's absolutely right. It's just one of those things where I felt like it was an unnecessary addition to the DLC.
I think it's something they had to put in just to make give you more content. Really, is instead of doing actual content,
but that's the thing. It wasn't content. And that was probably the thing that annoyed me most.
Hey, it gave me content, certainly, on twitch.tv/KamailH. Going around finding these Diglets while wonder trading. I enjoyed it, but certainly it was a lot more infuriating than it had to be. That's all I'm going to say.
I just felt like, to be honest, it's not that it was difficult, because if there's a good reward, I'm in it for difficult. I don't mind. Like I've got platinum trophies on PlayStation before, where I've really had to, work hard to do something or perfect a skill or whatever it is. It's literally just that there was no reward for getting those Diglett.
Yeah, and Vitz just says, in response to those rewards, he says con and then puts a little dash next to it, tent.
Yeah.
So, very fair. Listen, before I say we should count our Doug Trios that they weren't Cantonian Diglets and they were Alolan Diglets, can I just ask you, you were mentioning something about the Honeycomb Isle. What's all this about Honeycomb Isle and Diglets?
So it's not the smallest island in the game. There's a tiny island in the corner of the map where they've crammed 11 Diglets onto a tiny little island. And the island is basically it's a wheel with some spokes. So there's a central bit and then the spokes coming out of it. But half of the Diglett are hiding underneath Pokemon. So as you're avoiding all the wild encounters, because you don't want to waste your time encountering a Pokemon and hitting run, turns out all the Pokemon are hiding underneath the wild Pokemon. So you got to go and fight the Pokemon, defeat the Pokemon, and then run to find 3 flipping hairs underneath it.
Oh my god.
When
so that's where the last one. That's
where
the last one is for me. That's where the last
one
is for me.
It's hiding under a Lilligant on that island. I guarantee it.
Oh man. Do you know what? I'm done with the Diglett conversation. Can we just move on back to the story?
Well, the thing is, we've got to pad this podcast with something because there's so little story to talk about. I'm being so negative, by the way. I've just realised that, but oof.
Look, we'll come to it in the end. Overall, I had a good time with the DLC. But let's get into the story. So you basically, when you log into the Pokemans, you're given something called the Isle of Armor Pass or something along the lines of that. Whatever it's called, I had notes of what the name was and I forgot to look at the
Armor
notes.
Pass, I think it was.
Yeah, and it just says go to Wedgehurst Station, and you go to Wedgehurst Station. You go in a little train, and then you go in a little Corviknight, and you get over to the Isle of Arm, and you're greeted by this guy who's like, oh, there's a dodgy looking guy or girl outside, and I don't feel like going out. So this guy runs away. You take his place, and you're greeted by I just shut down there. By Clara.
You're
Clara,
greeted by either
Clara
or
Avery. Yeah, indeed. And we both played Swords, so we had Clara, and she just basically wants to get rid of you.
Clara was by far and away the better of the two. I don't want to say protagonists,
Rivals,
but the rivals. Yeah, she was by far and away the more interesting of the two because at least she had a backstory that made a bit of sense. She was, a poison type trainer aspiring to become a gym leader, very, very competitive, not afraid to get her hands dirty to try and win. Made sense, fit with the character. It was quite over the top.
Yeah, exactly.
It was quite, a caricature is a really good word. Like her character is very, over the top to the point where sometimes you're like, come on, like, there's no need. I'm a stranger. You don't need to be so aggressive towards me. But I hear very, very negative things about Avery, in that he was very bland, really didn't have a lot of story behind him. And I've not played the Sword DLC. I'm sure you will at some point.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Shield DLC. But apparently he was far more the dull one of the two. And I have to say, actually, Clara isn't the worst character that you've ever had as a rival. Actually, her backstory made some sense. She was relatively, interesting in parts. She came around by the end of the DLC. She had a reasonable arc. I think one of my problems with it is because the DLC was so short.
Yeah, exactly.
You never really connected with her as a character. Her turnaround doesn't feel very sincere. And just for the benefit of, I know a couple of listeners won't have played the DLC. The story basically consists of 3 missions. One of which is to fetch something. The second one is to fetch something, and the third one is to fetch something. Followed by 5 battles that you are over leveled for. So they're really easy.
You were over leveled for. Jesus, I wasn't. I got my,
okay. Well, the game encourages you.
The
game encourages you to grind before that battle, because it says to you, "We recommend you get to level 70."
Yeah.
And then the other Pokemon are level like 65 or whatever. So you're stronger than you need to be anyway. And obviously you can teach your Pokemon TMs, give it an item, and make it more powerful than it used to be anyway. EV train it, the like.
Yeah.
And then after that, you basically have another fetch quest followed by a big final battle. Which, to be fair, the final battle was good fun, and definitely
that
most
was probably the
challenging.
best part. Yeah, and his team was insane.
Insane. The final battle was good. I mean, the team was very, very strong. But look, that's the gist of the DLC. Wrapped around you being the student in a dojo, and the various fetch quests are sort of you competing against all the other students in the dojo to take the ultimate prize, which ends up being a Kubfu, marked as a legendary Pokemon that has the stats of relatively superior Pokemon, but certainly not legendary tier.
Like just about OU, you'd say. Like,
Yeah, I mean, Urshifu, its evolution has 550 as a base stat, which puts it alongside the likes of Togekiss, Gyarados, Volcanrola, Arcanine. So certainly not legendary tier, which starts at 600. Or even pseudo-legendary, which is again at 600, but certainly respectable, and probably one of the reasons why it's balanced enough to be used in competitive play. Urshifu will be legal in tournaments, and we'll get on to one of my other problems with that in a second.
Oh God,
because I'm full of it today.
Oh,
but
God.
No. But look, that's the gist of the story. So you get this Kubfu, and then you have to train Kubfu and become friends with Kubfu. Which again is quite a short process. You basically walk around the island and talk to some people to look at beautiful views. And that makes Kubfu love you, and then you basically take Kubfu to fight 5 battles, and that helps him evolve.
And looking
then
at a
once
painting. Don't forget, he had to look at a painting.
Yeah, he had to look at a painting. That's true.
Yeah.
That the painting is what makes him evolve. Looking at the painting. Yeah. But it was just one of those. It was a story where I really was like, where's it going to start? Where's it going to get going? And I actually texted you, I think, after I'd done the second or third mission, and I was like, please tell me there's a lot more after this. And you were like, oh no, there's more. And I'm like, is it just the final battle? And you're like, yeah, pretty much. And I was like, oh, okay. So maybe this is just a holding between now and the Crown Tundra, and we know that there's a lot happening in the Crown Tundra. There's obviously the Reggies. There's going to be some research things to do.
You'll be teaming up with the exploration guy, and I know he's got some sort of backstory to him. So hopefully,
so hopefully we see a lot more story in the Crown Tundra, which is the second half of the DLC releasing this fall or this autumn. But certainly the Isle of Armor was light on story, and I think one of the things that really surprised me is the Isle of Armor itself in the game.
If you just pause there.
Massive...
Sorry, no, finish your point. I thought you were going somewhere else. Go on.
No, I was kind of. I was going to say that the Isle of Armor is just one big open area, so you can actually explore the entirety of the Isle of Armor from the get-go whenever you want to.
Yeah, which is nice.
It's full of wild Pokemon, lots of different areas, and that's really nice. But one of the things it left me without is a sense of progression. So because I could get everywhere I wanted to at the beginning, because I could see everything, do everything, catch all the Pokemon, my team was stronger than everything.
You have to control
yourself.
Really strange you really have to control yourself.
Yeah, it was strange because I'd explored most of the island before the story even kind of got going.
So what the story does, sorry to cut you off there, but what the story does is essentially these fetch quests are basically there to show you the different sort of areas in the Isle of Armor, and then obviously at the end where you pick up your Kubfu, you have to become best friends, quote unquote, with it, which I thankfully didn't have to put a soothe bell on it and start running around like a madman. You're given like 4 or 5 different locations all around the map now to go be best friends with it, and I think the intention for them was, you're going to just stick to the story, you're going to behave yourself, and then as you do these fetch quests and as you become a best friend with your Kubfu, you'll gradually explore the Isle of Armor. But for people like me and you who are just curious to see what everything's like, we're like, no, we're not waiting for this if we don't have to. And I think that's
one of the first things I did was explore. I wanted to see all the new areas. I wanted to see what Pokemon are about, because I hadn't seen the full list of the Pokemon that were returning. So it was nice to see some Pokemon that were returning. I ran into a Scyther and I got really excited, and lots of other little things. So I definitely was, running around the island.
Yeah, no, and you had those ladies who each told you, I think it was only ladies, I can't remember seeing a guy that told me about a Pokemon, but they basically give you like a Pokédex entry to let you know what else there is about, just in case you've missed it, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's always a female NPC, and there's another female NPC who offers to trade Cantonian or I think Hoenn Pokemon with you for Galarian versions.
Yeah.
And there's another male NPC who I can't remember what he did, but he did something useful.
Okay,
but they're dotted around the map.
Yeah. So essentially, the story was basically fetch quests, like you say, which was, I think, primarily to get you to explore, even though we didn't need any invitation. If they didn't want us to go to a certain area before the story started, they should have put a guy with coffee just standing there being like, you can't go here, I'm finishing my coffee.
They perfected that in the first game. There was literally a giant Snorlax blocking the way, or a tree that you couldn't cut. I mean, they perfected it. They knew what to do.
I think what I need to credit the story with, though, was that the fact that the story did help you understand sort of the new items you get, and help you understand the mechanics as well behind some of the behind what was introduced in this sort of Isle of Armor DLC. Stuff like the Dynamax soup, what you use Armormite ore for. At the end of the story, you find out what is very useful to upgrade the dojo, to get things that might help you in the future, like lemonade from a vending machine.
Who by the way, is going to collect? I think it's like 3 million watts
to get the final thing.
Yeah. Who's doing that?
I mean, the Diggin. So we got 2 new additions in characters called the Diggin Pa and Diggin Ma. Try saying that 10 times. So just dig in power will take your armor might ore and give you watts, and these watts are like significant amounts of watts. So you can grind them if you decide to do a lot of raids and stuff like that. But I'm about, I think, 600 watts in, and I'm like, I'll do this gradually. I'm not going to rush at the moment. Yeah.
So what? Just sort of when I was reflecting on the DLC, and certainly like a lot of what we were talking about, it really does feel like a DLC that is there to push the competitive side of things. So if you think about the number of new mechanics that were introduced through this DLC, new moves that are hard to obtain, but certainly very impactful on competitive play, a new Pokemon that's supposedly very, very powerful, again, legalized for competitive play, lots of ways to train your Pokemon more easily. So there's a way to reset EVs, lots of trees that give you EV resetting berries, lots of items to improve competitive play, things like that.
The fact that you find on the floor casually mints as well, which is quite surprising.
And it just felt like maybe this was a DLC to push, the competitive scene to the next phase.
Even outside of the competitive phase, it's meant to get you ready for the next DLC actually as well. I think that's very you hit the nail on the head. That's basically what their intention was with this DLC, because at the end of the sort of story, Mustard, after you battle him, we'll have to talk about him individually, because honestly he's probably one of the best characters in this DLC. But he says to you, something along the lines of, you're going to be ready for what comes next, and then you're just left with, and your character literally is like, question mark, like what do you mean? So are they hinting towards the next DLC? I'm sort of thinking they might be hinting towards the Glass Star tournament or whatever, so he might feature there as well, who knows. So maybe he's training up for that tournament.
It felt like something more mythical, like there was some lore or something behind it. So I hope it's not just the Glass All-Star tournament, because that would be a bit of a letdown. But they really did, like a number of times, have little cutscenes where Mustard was hinting at this greater reason for you to need to go on this training quest.
Yeah, just so you're ready for the time comes.
Which I thought was going to take place in this DLC, and I was very, very, set for, after the big showdown with Mustard, him to go, right, you're now ready to take on this. But this never came, and it actually was only kind of really teased in kind of cutscenes after some of the major battles. It was never, said in front of your character. It was never said to your character.
He just hints at things, He sees potential in you. He knew that you weren't supposed to be there, but he saw potential in it and wanted to take you on. And yeah, the quote was, just so you were ready for when the time comes. So
I think this probably puts a lot of pressure on the Crown Tundra to be a phenomenal DLC.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so far, aside from the fact that I needed it in order to keep playing competitively, which is sad in a way that I had to do that, but it does feel like so far this DLC hasn't really been worth it.
Let's talk about characters. Let's talk about characters. We actually get Hop back, would you believe? And I actually quite liked Hop. Now, that's one thing about this DLC I really liked, is that you see Hop has started to evolve past what he was like in the original game. He's now, doing his thing as the Pokemon, professor's assistant or Pokemon researcher. And now he comes and tries to help you out with this sort of honey quest. Even though he epically fails, it's nice to see that he's at least trying to think about things, and he didn't seem as annoying as he did in the base game, that's for sure. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, Hop's character evolution was probably one of the nicest things in the DLC. It was nice to see him in a more mature way. It was nice to see him actually show off some knowledge. He was trying different nectars of Pokemon, and he was evaluating the taste. It was nice to see that side of him, where he wasn't just a little kid running around in the trails of his brother. He was striding out on his own. It was nice.
Does he even mention Leon on this? Oh yeah, he does.
Of course he does.
Yeah, to Mustard, but I guess not too much, at least,
No.
Big Bro would have said the honey's over there. Let's go. That's not him. Thank God. Another character I want to shout out, obviously Mustard, being the Galarian champion. My first impression of him was like, is this guy serious? Because he's just there sitting down with the Switch playing Pokemon Quest, and I'm thinking, are you serious?
That was a really nice touch, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you actually read his league card,
no.
But on the back of his league card, it talks about how after he retired as champion, he became addicted to video games.
Yeah, well, on his shelf as well, he's got all these strategy guides. You literally go up to them and say, "Oh, loads of strategy guides." Like, it's amazing. I love
nice
Mustard,
touch.
honestly. And unlike
It would have been, by the way, funny if he was playing Pokemon Rumble Rush, and then like just 2 weeks into the DLC, they stopped it.
He's just in front of his black screen TV, just like, what's going on here?
That would have been way funnier.
Oh god, they can barely get to the end of the story. Don't expect him to do something funny like that. But in terms of his character as well, he did give off this vibe of mystery, which I quite liked. He wasn't a caricature, definitely not. He did seem to have his head screwed on. And he always, wanted to give you a helping hand because he saw something in you, which is quite nice. And he was very challenging as a trainer. I'd say he was one of the better fights I've had throughout the Pokemon games. And I really enjoyed his final fight. What do you think of that final fight?
I thought his reveal was really good, from this kind of older man who was very gentle, walking really slowly, to I don't know what to describe him as, like the martial arts expert.
I'm about to finish your whole career.
Yeah, literally, he does like a triple somersault onto the battlefield. And you're like, sorry, where did this guy come from?
Yeah, and
where's he been all this time?
His music changes as well to something a lot more serious and a lot more tense. It was so amazing, that reveal, to see him, just start doing all the backflips like Yoda in like Attack of the Clones. It's like.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually he as a character was very well written. I liked him. He was very interesting, very quirky, and I hope that he has a part to play in the Crown Tundra as well, because I'd like to see a bit more of him.
I definitely think we'll see him in the All-Star tournament. I think he might have been referring to that, because the other thing that makes me think it's going to be about the Crown Tundra is also because you get to see cameos of other characters in the game with their partner Pokemon out alongside them, which is quite interesting. Why they're there, and it changes from day to day, but it's a pretty cool thing that they were there as well. So I'm guessing they're all there getting ready, training as well. So who knows? But should we quickly just talk about his team, his final team?
Yeah, go for it.
So his final team was a Mienshao, a Luxray, a Lycanroc, Morning Form, a Corviknight, a Como, and an Urshifu, Gigantamax. That's a pretty well balanced team, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it's not bad. You've got the Lycanroc to counter Volcanrola. You've got Komodo who wants to set up. You've got Urshifu, Gigantamax, who obviously you can land some critical hits and go hit through Protect. Yeah, decent team.
Yeah, and he had some good moves on the Pokemons. Body Press, Light Screen. Stealth Rock, my favorite. But he had good coverage as well, so it made the battle quite interesting. Especially because when I went into this DLC, I made sure all my Pokemon were capped at level 60, and then from there I let them grow throughout the DLC. So yeah, no, it was a tough old fight and a very, very rewarding one by the end of it. But I was quite shocked to see he had quite a nice team. It would have been easy to give him like 6 Galarian Pokemon and that's it.
So one of the things that was really interesting is that they said before the DLC that the difficulty would be adaptive. So the opponent's Pokemon would level up as your Pokemon leveled up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little annoyed in a way that they didn't just look at the level of the Pokemon in my party and go, my Pokemon are level 100, their Pokemon should be level 100. Because I think that probably would have made that final battle a lot more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I expected a tough battle, so I obviously brought my story team. My story team now are all level 100, and obviously I blitzed through the final battle.
So
but
they kind of missold the whole cap thing, because the idea was, and the impression that everyone got was, they'll look at your team and they'll scale it accordingly. Now that's wrong. What actually happens is, if you haven't completed the Champion Cup, the trainers you face, they'll be about level 23, 24 at the beginning of the game. And if you have done the Champion Cup, then their Pokemon will be about level 60 or so, which, it's just a really bad way of doing things, I find. There's such a big disparity between the two. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, one is true adaptive difficulty, one is just 2 different options.
Yeah, and they don't even make it clear,
So one of my other, there's a reason I'm telling this story. One of my other frustrations with the DLC is that it reveals a new legendary Pokemon, Kubfu, and its evolution Urshifu.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 2 different versions of Urshifu that you can have. One is a part water type, one is a part dark type. And you can only get one from playing the DLC. So if you want, for competitive reasons, to have the other one, you've either got to try and trade, or you've got to do the entire DLC again from scratch on a different save file and then port it over to your main game.
Yep.
And of course, being a competitive player, I had to do exactly that. So I literally started a brand new save file, picked Sobble, went through the entirety of the story up until you get access to Wedgehurst Station.
Is that
which is
where
the
you get
beginning of
stopped about 17 times within 5 minutes, or?
Yeah, Hop stopped me 17 times.
Brilliant.
You literally get to the wild area and then you can take the train back. So literally got to the beginning of the wild area and then double back, got to Wedgehurst, hopped on the train, and then redid the entire Isle of Armor DLC with a Sobble and a Zigzagoon in my party. And it was easy. No grinding, no training. I fought maybe 2 or 3 chances to get Kubfu at the level it needed to be in order to take on the tower. That was it. It was straightforward. The thing that made that really hard is doing it starting from scratch is that I didn't have the access to fly and I didn't have access to a bike. So I couldn't cross the water. So I had to do everything on foot, which took a little bit longer. But honestly, other than that, I finished the DLC, including like starting a brand new game, start to finish, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours
That
tops.
doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me one bit.
So, and that was me just blitzing through the story to get Urshifu. It just didn't feel like enough content.
Let's talk. Let's
and it really bugged me that I had to play it twice as well.
Let's be a bit positive and move away from that. Let's talk about another character I liked, Honey. I'm not calling you
Yeah,
Honey. I'm
was
saying,
cool.
yeah, Honey was nice. I think
our relationship hasn't quite got to that stage yet. We'll get there.
Oh, yeah, she was quite motherly. She seemed to have, again, her head screwed on. She felt like an actual person rather than a caricature, which I appreciated. And yeah, no, she was just there to help out. And actually, you do get to battle her if you do save up that 1 million watts or whatever. So that's a cool little addition as well.
Yeah, and I liked her son.
Oh, should we talk about Hyde? Hyde then.
Oh, I'd forgotten his name, but well done you. Yes, let's talk about Hyde.
Okay.
Firstly, shout out to us getting a prediction right that Cramomatic would give you April balls.
That was all you. I'm not even going to try to take credit on that one.
That's all right. I was giving us both credit. It's a PokeRamble podcast win. But we got it right.
10 points to PokeRamble. That's a Harry Potter reference. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was good. I liked it. Why do we do so much dumb stuff on this podcast? But no, I mean Hyde was cool. It was nice to have a character who was techie, geeky. It was a cool little side bit that I probably should have paid more attention to, but it was a nice little touch.
So what was interesting about?
I liked the inventory personality. I liked that he was techie, and I liked that other than maybe kind of Bill and I guess Lynette in Gen 3, there's not been many characters who were just out and out tech nerds.
Yeah.
I guess Sophocles to an extent, but it was nice that Hyde was, clearly very into his technology, very into his computers, inventor, liked it.
So yeah, what's really interesting about Hyde is he's got this machine called the Cramomatic, where essentially you put items in and you get items out. For example, you put in apricons in, you get a ball out. Now, you're not guaranteed to actually get a apricot ball like we thought we would. And he says, actually, he gives us a reason that he learned how to do it from a man in the Johto region. So he's clearly traveled to learn about, technology and for his inventions.
Do we assume that that's Kurt?
Huh? No,
do we assume that?
No, so he mentions it in the game when you put in the apricons. So he says basically that he's learned it from a guy in the Johto region, but he's not as skilled as the guy in the Johto region. So shout out to Kurt again. So Kurt's not redundant.
I was going to say, did you think that was Kurt? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not redundant. He is still the OG. And so that's why they're not guaranteed in the game. But what's really interesting is that you can actually get a Safari Ball and a Sport Ball for the first time since Gen 4, which is really interesting.
Can you get Park Ball?
Park Ball, Sport Ball are the same thing, essentially.
Oh, from Pal Park?
Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, Pal Park. Hang on, I need to search this now, because I definitely know Sport Ball and Park Ball are basically synonyms. but this
I
might be a
thought
different
in
ball.
Gen 4, Pal Park had its own ball.
Oh, are you talking? Is this a gold ball at all? Right, it might have been renamed to Park Ball, but for intensive purposes, it used to be called the Park Ball back in like Gen 2 and then Gen 4 Sport Ball. So Park Ball might be something different.
Park
in the
Ball is
Pal
a type
Park.
of Pokeball introduced in Generation 4. It's used to catch Pokemon migrated into Pal Park. Not available.
I definitely think it
in
might be a
any other
translation
game.
thing then, because it's definitely called a Park Ball, Sport Ball, Park Ball, same thing. We'll get that for clarifications
What
on
colour
Sunday.
is it?
It was just red with a little pattern on top.
No, so the Park Ball is orange with a blue rim.
Right, that doesn't ring any bells. We'll put it for the clarifications on Sunday. So tune into Sunday because
It literally says if you were looking for the Pokeball known as the Park Ball in Generation 2,
here
see
it is.
Sport Ball.
Here it is. Park Ball in Japanese. There we go. So if you go to this Bulbapedia, the best resource on the internet, Sport Ball, Japanese, Park Ball.
Yeah, but that's the Generation 2 Park Ball.
Yeah.
In Generation 4, there's a new ball called the Park Ball that's not the same as the Sport Ball.
Right, but it's still not wrong to call a Sport Ball a Park Ball because it was called a Park Ball in Gen 2.
Correct. No, I agree with that, but I'm talking about a different ball.
No, so there is no chance of getting that in that case. You're well out of luck. And could you even transfer those Pokemon from the Pal Park in those balls?
Yeah, because you would have been able to transfer from Gen 4 to Gen 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to...
No, what I'm saying is,
8.
Are those Pokemon that you catch from the Pal Park, are they in that Pokeball? Do you know what I mean? Or do they come out as the original Pokeball? Because I haven't seen one of those Park Balls, quote unquote, ever since.
Oh, no, you're right. You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
When you catch the Pokemon, it retains the Pokeball it had in Gen 3.
Yeah.
You are spot on.
How have we got down this rabbit hole about balls? See, this is what I mean when we're Pokemon nerds. Oh dear, let's just go back to
It's good content. This is what the people want, is they want us talking about really specific ball-related topics. This is what the people ask for.
No one clip this out, please. We'll move on. So yeah, in terms of the character, Hyde's really cool, and what's also cool is you can get competitive items from this Chromomatic, but there's so many different combinations and different percentage chances of getting these items that you might as well just farm for BP and get them that way, to be honest with you. You can find a full list combination on Cerebi.net. He said basically there's billions of different sort of combinations you can make. So he can't obviously list them all, but yeah, if you want to try to look for something specific and narrow down your chances of getting it, make sure you check out Cerebi for that. What should we talk about? There was that one guy who teaches your Pokemon new moves, and there was a couple of new moves there that I really liked. First one being Scorching Sands, which was that one, a ground type move that has got a chance to burn, which is really cool. Very sad it's not a physical move, but
nice to give Charizard a special ground type move.
Yeah, that can burn. That's huge. That is huge. That's amazing. Do you think Volcarona can learn it? I haven't even tried it. Oh my god, please check, because we lost Hidden Power Ground.
And I'll check while we're talking.
Yeah, if Volcarona can learn that, oh my god, it's over. It's over for everybody. But yeah.
Well, it isn't because of Accelerock.
What Pokemon is going to really use Accelerock in the metagame?
No, Accelerock.
Yeah,
Lycanroc.
But in the metagame, who uses Lycanroc?
Seriously, Tough Claws, Dusk Form Lycanroc with Tough Claws has access to close combat, which is with Tough Claws, a 180 base power move. Stick a choice band on that, you're good.
All right, we'll have to play some Smogon, actually, and we're going to make a Volcarona team. I'm committing it to the people now, so you can't back out of this one. We're going to use a Volcarona and we're going to go wreck some people.
This time next week.
Okay, fine. I'm in. I'm in. Unless there's football, then we'll have to reschedule. But yeah. Mecha Shadow says in the chat, guys, I was talking about balls. Shake my head. Let's go for another 15. Another good move, I guess, was the water U-turn. Essentially, I don't know what the name is of it, but there's a U-turn essentially, but it's a water type move, which is
it's called Flip 10. Physical water move, 60 base power. that
good old
basically after
move.
making your attack, you retreat and you get to swap out, like a bit like U-turn.
Yeah, and we know how good U-turn is in the singles meta game, so this is just gonna be as good. Is there any sort of moves that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, can I give a shout out to Choice Band Rillaboom using Grassy Glide? Grassy Glide being a physical 70 base power grass type move that always goes first on grassy terrain.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
with
That's
Choice
good.
Band, with the power up from grassy terrain, with stab, Rillaboom does serious damage to anything. It's almost like Dracovish and Fish's Rend. It just punches through everything.
Yeah,
And it has priority.
a lot of Pokemon don't. Oh my god, you're right. We actually used Rillaboom, and the amount of times that we could like do serious damage to Pokemon that could switch in was amazing. But the only problem is his speed wasn't good enough to sort of take a hit and then punch back to most Pokemon.
So I'm actually just literally this week climbing the singles ladder to get some more BP.
Yeah.
And having Choice Band, Grassy Glide, Rillaboom on my team.
Yeah.
Has been insane.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have Holucha in the back to take advantage of grassy terrain, but the number of games that Grassy Glide has won on its own, just because of the sheer power of grassy terrain plus Choice Band plus a high attack stat plus priority is phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh my god, I forgot about that. That's huge. That is huge. So maybe we'll have to put Holucha into the Volcarona team again.
The other move really worth making a shout out to is Expanding Force, psychic type move that in psychic terrain gets a 1.5 times power boost and hits both Pokemon as opposed to one.
Okay, so
lots
something
of
for
Pokemon
doubles.
like Indeedee, Hatterene, Alakazam can really take advantage of that.
Oh god, so is Trick Room going to be a big thing again, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Trick Room teams, I've seen a couple of them in early VGC Series 5 teams using something like Indeedee Hatterene to set up Trick Room, using the standard Follow Me, and then just spamming Expanding Force to do massive amounts of damage is absolutely a good combination. Yeah, I mean, Expanding Force is a very powerful move. Boosted by Psychic Terrain means it doesn't just get a 1.5 times power boost, it also gets the boost from Psychic Terrain on top of that. So it really is a move that hits hard.
Yeah, I think that's one of the useful trainers we meet. What's another useful trainer we meet? We meet this one lady who, for I think it's Armormite Ore, she will basically reset the effort values of your Pokemon, which is a very nice thing to do. So essentially clean slating your Pokemon. Is it effort values or IVs? No, it's effort values for sure. Yeah.
Effort values.
Yeah, so that's a cool addition as well. Not that I prefer to build a new Pokemon just rather than reset the one I have fully trained.
Yeah, I mean, I find it quite useful because sometimes I'll have like a Togekiss that's a real pain to breed new ones of, because you have to get Togepi and then make it have friends with you and then evolve it and then breed it again. It's a whole thing. So Togekiss is actually one of those Pokemon where that's a really handy trick.
Anything else in terms of characters? Am I missing anything?
I mean, the character we're both missing is the one who gives you some bait for a Diglett that you could just hold out on a stick and then they pop their heads up. Where's that NPC?
Oh, I was like, hang on a minute, what have I missed? Oh my god, yeah, no, exactly. Like what was that, a Croc Seed reference or something?
Give me. I was hoping that at the end of the DLC, as a reward, you get like a dowsing machine for Diglett that would at least bleep when they're nearby.
Like back in Gen 6, Oras, when you had those little two things you used to go around and beep 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 beep. There's an item here.
Yeah. I can't remember. It was dowsing machine. It was definitely in Gen 5, and I loved it. In Gen 5 was my favorite use of dowsing machine.
It was Gen 6 as well, Oras, definitely.
Was it in Gen 4? I'm just wondering whether Gen 5 was the first time it was used. I think it was Gen 5. I really liked it in Gen 5. I thought it was really well implemented.
But anyway, what wasn't in Gen 5 was the Max Soup as well, that could give your Pokemon a Gigantamax potential. Way to get it is to get 3 mushrooms.
My favourite thing about that is that you can actually now have perfect Gigantamax Pokemon. You don't have to rely on resetting dens to try and get one with decent IVs.
Yeah, and you don't have
if you need something with
you don't have
zero
to worry
speed
about
or
Gigantamax
zero
shiny dens as well, which is a nice thing.
Yeah, it means you can just carry on breeding score bunnies for 6 months until you get a shiny.
I do want to give a shout out to the lady who lets you upgrade your bike. Finally, that makes your bike actually looks pretty cool. So I chose
Yeah,
black for mine.
the new bikes look really cool. Oh, and I have to say, the new outfits that are available to purchase actually look good.
Oh yeah, you get more customization options as well in this DLC.
Yeah, some of them are rubbish. Some of them actually look good. So I put a suit on, so I look a bit more like myself. Obviously,
Did you get the chairman's haircut as well?
I did not. No, I opted to stick with my same haircut.
Okay.
There are new hairstyles, but I stuck with the one I had. So I've got a suit with no jacket, so shirt, tie, and waistcoat, and then skinny jeans and trainers, because that's how I wear a suit.
You're allowed to have fun in Pokemon. You know, you don't have to be boring. But someone who
That's
certainly
that's
isn't
that's literally how I go to work as well.
someone who isn't boring is a lady who gives you glaring Galarica cuffs. I need to say glaring Galarica cuffs. That helps you evolve your glaring Slowpoke. That was a weird way of doing
Yeah,
things.
I liked it actually. It was different.
Mhm.
It's a shame that the twigs drop at random. It took me a while to find enough.
Yeah.
But once I did, no, it was cool. It was nice to have a little mechanic to evolve your Slowpoke. I know lots of people like bred shinies or bred really good ones ready for the DLC. So if you wanted a Galarian Slowbro, it was a nice little way to get one. I was a fan.
Other items to give a shout out for was obviously the experience charm you get. All your Pokemon get experience, obviously, but with this you can focus on a particular Pokemon to level up extra quick. So that's pretty cool.
I'm annoyed that didn't carry across to Pokejobs.
Oh, you actually tried it?
Yes, I did.
I have no words for you. And the other one is Mark Charm. So the Mark Charm is a charm that increases the chance of you finding a Pokemon with a mark. Which is, if you want to explain to people what a mark is.
Yeah, they're basically the equivalent of ribbons, except they randomly generate on wild Pokemon. And what's really nice is that as you call that Pokemon out into battle, they get their own little unique intro. So it could be like Charizard the Sunny or Vanillux the Icy or something like that,
Oh, the
which is
miserable.
cool.
No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, there's
I'm
all
feeling
sorts of
the
ones.
spicy.
It's cool. So yeah, nice that you can. How do you get that, by the way?
You have to collect all the Pokemon in the DLC.
Oh, forget that. Okay.
You
Well,
already there, practically, I'd say.
No, I just need to bring them over from Pokemon Bank.
Okay, fair enough. Home, bank
yeah,
to
I
home,
mean,
whatever. But let's talk about the best part of this DLC, right? Let's talk about the hands down. There's no debate. Best part of this DLC, and that was the wild area, the actual wild area. You know, the one with the biomes that are actually full of life, that actually makes sense for the Pokemon to be there. You know, like the soothing wetlands, which is like a swamp that's got like Chewtles, and it's got like, you know, Crawdons hanging out there. You know, it makes sense. It looks beautiful. It's great. Why wasn't this the original wild area?
it was really well designed,
Honestly,
and actually just the sheer number of Pokemon felt better. And
yeah,
I know that they were talking about how the Isle of Armor was meant to be a more unspoiled natural environment. So I'm sure that part of the lore is explaining why there are so many more Pokemon there. But it was actually to the extent where I found myself using repels again for the first time,
did they even
which was
work?
nice. Yeah, they do.
Because I used a repel once, and the wild Pokemon was still walking up to me like, "All right, great, let's deal with this again."
Try a Max Repel.
Okay.
But no, it was nice because it was just so full of Pokemon. I ran into a Zoroark in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." Lots of things that I thought were really nice. But actually, I'm going to disagree with you on the best feature of the DLC.
Go on.
For me, the best feature of the DLC was that your Pokemon can follow around behind you.
How did I even miss this?
There is nothing greater than Meltan with his tiny little arms trying to keep up with you, going like.
That took, like, no joke. It takes him 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
It's the funniest thing watching a Meltan try and keep up with you.
Yeah, so actually, that's one of the biggest surprises to me, is that the fact that they brought back partner Pokemon that can follow you. First time we've seen it since Gen 4 Hot Gold and Soul Silver, and I imagine now that they've made so many models and complete these animations for these models that there's no excuse for the next generation not to have this feature now that they've at least made about 600, 700 models for these Pokemon now to follow you. It's a shame that it's only in the Isle of Armor, but I'll take it. At least it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely take it. I think that it's probably one of those things where they had to put some real time and effort into getting those Pokemon to move properly and all of that stuff because
it's
not all of those
their own
Pokemon...
animation. It's not I bet you anything they had to do it from the ground up.
I mean, I know they will have done some of it for Pokemon Camp.
Yeah.
And I've just seen in the chat as well a question about the DLC. Just to pick up on that before we go too much further.
Yeah.
Which is, do you need to complete the Isle of Armor DLC in order to play the Crown Tundra?
We don't know.
So we don't know at the moment. It's unconfirmed.
I'd assume so.
It's likely that well, I was going to say the opposite actually. I would say it's probably likely that you'd be able to at least start the Crown Tundra without having played the Isle of Armor.
Yeah.
But given that you can't buy one without the other anyway, I think that it's probably a safe assumption that most players will have played the first one before playing the second one.
Yeah, exactly. The only reason why I say I don't think so is just because I'm giving Game Freak too much credit here by thinking that when Mustard says that
the story will pick up from the previous
exactly. So that's my sort of thinking behind that.
Yeah, it's possible, but it's unconfirmed at this stage.
Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun finding Pokemon again, filling out a Pokedex again. And I want to shout out...
Yeah, you had fun finding all those Diglett?
I didn't have fun getting chased by Sharpedos left, right, and centre. That was really annoying.
Oh, I liked that. That was fun.
It was once cool I figured out how to... 2 times, but... I mean...
Once I figured out how to avoid them, it was fun.
It's never fun to be, like, having to look over your shoulder, like, hearing the Jaws theme tune and seeing a Sharpedo just, like, rushing to you for no reason. Okay, I'll tell you what the coolest Pokemon to find in the wild was. It starts with a W.
It was the giant Wailord.
The Wailord. Oh, I've wanted to see one of those in forever, and I finally got to see one.
Boy, did we name our podcast right.
Oh, a Wailord of DLC.
Yeah.
Or something like that, yeah. Yeah, we did. We did indeed. But I don't think we've missed anything. There was cool battles, I guess. The soundtrack was pretty good and made sense for the sort of occasion of you being in the dojo, very Japanese sort of.
Yeah, I like the dojo soundtrack.
Yeah. Your rival's soundtrack differs between Avery and Clara. I haven't listened to Avery's too much, but Clara's is very upbeat, poppy, but then it's got some sinister synth in there as well to balance it out, so you get to see 2 sides of her. It's a good soundtrack, very, very sort of poppy, so I haven't listened to that, but definitely my favourite is the final fight against Mustard. It's very tense, which I liked about it. But yeah, I mean, general impression of the DLC, what would I rate it? Probably a 6 out of 10. And that's
less than Metacritic.
That's mostly for the wild area and how they revamped it and how it was reimagined, and for Mustard's fight, obviously. I guess I've forgotten one part of the thing is after you've beaten Mustard and your rival trainer, you get access to something called restricted sparring, where it's essentially monotype battling, where you battle 5 trainers to earn BP. And you choose 3 Pokemon of the same type to go into this arena for restrictive sparring, quote unquote. So, did you do any restrictive sparring at all, or?
I haven't yet. No, I'm at the moment trying to climb the singles ladder, so my attention has been fully on that at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess the best part of the DLC for me was definitely the new wild area and just catching Pokemon again. And the final battle versus Mustard. But there wasn't too much else in there. The story was really short, and for the most part wasn't worth it. Best part of the story was, finally getting to Kubfu and hanging out with Kubfu, I guess, and growing with Kubfu. But yeah, it was disappointing. It was disappointing.
Did you know that the Avery Balls have a 1% chance of spawning?
Yeah.
Out of the Cramomatic.
Yeah, that's why I said it's not guaranteed. The guy can't do it as well as Kurt.
There's not guaranteed, and then there's 1%.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
I know.
I miss Cad.
Not as bad as the Safari and Sport Balls or the Park Ball from Gen 2. Sorry, buddy. Which is like 0.1%, so even worse. I did have a few people hit me up on Twitter asking for Sport Ball Scythers, and I was like, yeah, I prepared. I was ready for this.
There's a really interesting question, just before we do wrap this up, there's a really interesting question in the chat, which says,
so
should I get it or should I not?
Knowing Largent, he's a huge Pokemon fan. He's very, very much an expert of the classic games. Like, I'd argue that no one knows Gen 2 more than Largent does, to be honest with you. He plays it multiple times a day. I'd say absolutely get it, Largent. Knowing Largent as a Pokemon fan, I'd say for Largent, you get it. For the casual, you can probably wait till the Crown Tundra to jump into DLC and jump into Pokemon again. If you've got other things taking up your time, focus on those. But if you're itching to play some Pokemon again, pick up the DLC. I was disappointed, but I enjoyed it, which is a really weird thing to say. What did you find the DLC like? What would you rate
I'm thinking about the question and whether to get it or not. I mean, look, if you're a nuts Pokemon fan and you love Pokemon, look, it's more Pokemon content. You can never go truly wrong. If you haven't bought it yet and you're on the fence, there is absolutely no harm in waiting to see what the reviews are like for the Crown Tundra. And if the reviews coming out of that are similar, my advice would probably be don't worry about the DLC. You played Sword and Shield, you felt what Gen 8 was like, you got the gist of the story, or certainly the main story. Hang out till the Gen 4 remake or Gen 9 or whatever comes next.
Or you can play the Pokemon MOBA. More on that on Sunday.
Or I'm sure we'll talk about that on the podcast this weekend. There's so many other things in the Pokemon world and the non-Pokemon world worth playing. That for 27 quid at the moment, I wouldn't back the Isle of Armor. I wouldn't say get it. Unless you are looking to play competitive and you need to get the Isle of Armor to unlock new Pokemon or new things, then by all means. If you're just in it for the story and you'll probably play the Isle of Armor and then put it down and forget about it, I'd probably wait for the Crown Tundra, see what the reviews are like, and then if the reviews are really glowing and positive from that, absolutely pick it up. If not, maybe give it a skip. I think it's one of those things where if you're the kind of person who played Black and White and then Black and White 2 came out and you said, I've got to go and play Black and White 2, even though it's basically the same world and basically the same story, but you go in a slightly different direction around the circle, absolutely, then this is for you. If you looked at Black and White 2 and thought this is the same damn game with the same damn characters doing the same damn thing, I would probably give a hold and just wait to see what the Crown Tundra is like. And if that turns out to be a phenomenal piece of story and a phenomenal piece of DLC, then absolutely I'd recommend it. I think as it stands today, it would be hard to encourage someone to buy the expansion pass based on the Isle of Armor.
I do think it literally does depend on your sort of fandom with Pokemon. Yeah. Literally, I think like a nut like me, I don't regret buying it. As I said, I enjoyed it, and I didn't really think of didn't really think about it about the sort of £27 price point because I sort of split it in half my head. But you're absolutely right that there is a second part to wait for, and I guess if you're not that huge into Pokemon and you had fun with Gen 8, but you know you're not too sure, you're on the fence, you can probably wait, like you said. But I know Largent, he's a big Pokemon fan. I'd say absolutely get it, honestly. I guess
I mean, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this on another podcast, I'm sure. But in my head, I've always had a rule that is roughly £1 1 hour. So most games that I buy, you and I can argue about this all day long.
Yeah.
Most games that I buy, if I spend 30 quid on a game, I reckon it'll last me 30 hours. If I spend 75 quid on a game, which is now what I'm at with Sword and Shield, I'd expect it to last me 75 hours. And my playtime on Pokemon Sword is now 300 hours. So that's hugely dominated by the fact that I'm a huge Pokemon enthusiast. I've done a lot of competitive play. I've done post-game. I've collected the full Pokedex. If you're not into all of those things and you want to think about what's value for money, maybe there are other things out there. But if you're a Pokemon fan, it's more Pokemon content. You can't really go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to argue with you right now.
If you were one of those suckers who bought, if you bought Ultra Sun and Moon, having played Sun and Moon, you need to go and buy the DLC.
Well, that's my final question for you then. Is like, as coming off, a slew of games where we've had a third version where you essentially have to play through the entire game again, albeit with tweaks and whatnot. And I think Gen 5 was a bit different. That it was like 2 years later, and it was a So there was a sort of a lot more at the end of the game as well. That I think was worth it. Would you prefer DLC then, like this, or would you prefer a third game at full price?
So I definitely said I
end?
definitely remember saying when the DLC came out that I thought this was a huge step forward. And one of the things I really hated was having to play through the same storyline or roughly the same storyline again to get to the new stuff.
To give Largent an idea, I was one of those guys, and I don't call my sucker for doing it, but I really felt like Ultra Sun and Moon was a slog just to get to the one bit I wanted to get to, which was the post game with Team Rainbow Rocket. You know,
but boy, was that worth it! Boy, was the post game worth it!
It was worth it, but you know, I'll just say my opinion right now. I just prefer DLC, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a support for the DLC model. My challenge will always be: is the DLC giving me more new content than I would get from a new game? So when I think about Ultra Sun and Moon, if I think about the Ultra Wormhole, Team Rainbow Rocket, and all the new things that
really
came along
hard fight against Ultra Necrozma that swept me a few times.
Yes, yeah. You know, if I add up the sum total of those things, so far I haven't got enough new content to say I'd rather have DLC.
Yeah.
But when the Crown Tundra comes along and I've got more of it, it'll probably feel like a more complete experience, and then it probably feels like it's a more complete and more worthwhile experience. At the moment, just because obviously I'm comparing it to quite a lot of extra content when new stuff comes out, it's hard to do a like-for-like comparison.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the chat. The post game in Ultra Sun and Moon was probably one of the most fun things I've had. I've done playing Pokemon.
No, I
much
can't
fun.
disagree. I can't disagree. It was a very cool concept as well, you know. The multiverse confirmed.
Yes, it was very much. But it was also nice because, like, I remember you were helping me with this. I literally made a team for Ultra Sun and Moon of Pokemon I'd never used before. By sheer luck, I also had a shiny in that team, which was really special. Shout out to Interior Crocodile Alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater. We'll talk about that another time. But it was just lots of fun to play through that story with a bunch of Pokemon I would never have otherwise used, because I typically, you know, will go with the starter and some of the stronger Pokemon you get early on. To actually have a team made up of really random Pokemon to play Ultra Sun and Moon made it more fun. And then when I got to the post game, you know, it really dialed it up to 10 for me. So I had a lot of fun with the Ultra Sun and Moon post game.
Summarize.
That was a true PokeRamble.
Yeah, I'll summarize. Good characters for the most part. Great soundtracks added in. I was disappointed that there was not enough about the rival trainer, and that's because the story's not long enough to support the rival trainer actually being a sort of fleshed out character rather than a caricature. Very disappointed that there was no wild area remix themes. For example, you go into battle, I thought there'd be like a different version of the sort of battle theme, like how Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon have two different battle themes. I thought it would be a different battle theme there. I was a bit disappointed that there was no trainers in the wild as well to battle. I guess they restrict that to the dojo and also the sort of tower fights and whatnot, but I was disappointed by that as well. I very much did like the wild area. I thought it was the best part of the DLC, along with the walking Pokemon behind you. And yeah, I just liked filling up my Pokédex again. I'd recommend it if you're a Pokemon fan and you're itching for some more Pokemon. I wouldn't recommend it for someone who's a bit more laid back when it comes to Pokemon. I'd definitely agree with you, Amit, and say wait until the Crown Tundra hits and see how that goes. For sure.
Yeah, I think if you played Sword and Shield and you got to the end of the game and you put the game down, then the DLC probably isn't for you. If you finished the Sword and Shield game and then went and did all the post game content and, you know, stuck around for a bit longer, did some raiding, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd definitely consider picking up the DLC based on the first part. But for those of you on the fence, there's another part coming. We'll obviously be doing a review of that as well, and you're welcome to check that out and make a decision on that.
And when is that part coming?
They've said autumn. We've not got a confirmed date.
Yeah.
So any time between, I guess, now and November.
I'm going to say November. I think they're probably going to need all the time they can get. I hope with this one. But it's a PokeRamble thumbs up from me. Is it a PokeRamble thumbs up from you?
I'm like halfway.
It's a PokeRamble from you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like in the middle.
It's been a pleasure, my good friend. Is there anything you want to plug, shout out, anything like that?
Yeah, let's just do a quick roundup. As always, PokeRamble Podcast, Twitter, YouTube. Search for PokeRamble Podcast.
The
We will obviously
64th
put
best Pokemon podcast, let me just add.
we were the 63rd at one point.
Oh, damn.
Best Pokemon podcast on Spotify. We're moving up in the world.
Yeah.
Please, if you haven't, follow us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Whatever the stuff is that you need to do, you know what it is.
Yeah.
And most importantly, new episodes live every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. British Summer Time, 6:30 p.m. UTC Central
Universal.
Time.
Yeah.
Universal Central Time.
Mhm.
Live twitch.tv/KumailH, KUMAILH. Live every Sunday evening. Come hang with us. Come ask us questions. Come tell Kumail how little he knows about Pokemon and how bad he is at competitive. Any of that is fine. But listen, it's been a pleasure, as always.
Mom! Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.